G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to DCS World with Mags, and welcome to DCS's newest flyable aircraft, and one that actually slipped in pretty below the radar. This is the Chinese J-11A. Now the J-11A comes free to anybody who owns the Flaming Cliffs 3 module in DCS World, and is part of a Chinese assets pack under development by Deka Ironworks. This assets pack includes the J-11A, a number of Chinese ships and surface units, and in the future will include AI versions of the J-10A, the JH-7A, and the H-6H. All of this, of course, adding China as a faction within DCS World, and laying the groundwork for Deka Ironworks' future development of the JF-17 Thunder module, which is being modelled, as I understand it, as a fully clickable high-fidelity aircraft. So, what is the J-11A? Well, the J-11A is a licensed-built version of the Su-27SK produced by Shenyang in China. It's a very, very similar aircraft to the Su-27S that we already have in-game. However, there are some subtle differences, although I will be upfront in saying that most of these differences are just cosmetic due to the way that the aircraft is modelled. This is not a full-fidelity aircraft. It does have a professional flight model, but it is not clickable. It is Flaming Cliffs 3 level of fidelity. The differences include having a slightly different modelled antenna underneath the nose. It has a slightly different configuration in the landing gear with extra actuators on the landing gear doors. It has a slightly different configuration for the taxiing lights. The number of navigation lights and anti-collision lights has been increased over the whole of the aircraft, and the aircraft now also features formation lights, much like the F-15. The cockpit of the J-11A is also slightly different. While the overall layout is pretty much the same, texture-wise it is slightly higher, and everything is, or rather looks, much clearer than it did in the Su-27. It looks like a newer aircraft, because it is meant to be one, but of course the major difference inside of the cockpit is everything has been Chinese localized. This, of course, is not an issue for anybody who flies the aircraft. All of the gauges read exactly the same as they did in the Su-27. It's just now, instead of having Russian Cyrillic on the gauges in the cockpits, you have Chinese. Now, I can't vouch for everybody, but I can honestly say, I can't read Cyrillic, I can't read Chinese. It has made absolutely no difference to my ability to actually fly this aircraft. All of the warning lights indicate exactly the same as in the Su-27, all the gauges are still in metric, and all the gauges are in the same places for the most part, so it's not a problem. I do actually like the look of the cockpit, however. It adds a level of authenticity to the aircraft that I really do enjoy. So, other than those changes to the visuals of the aircraft, of course there is a whole new collection of skins with various Chinese squadrons, as well as a number of US Air Force Aggressor Squadron camos, which are actually kind of fantastic to look at. There are some really nice camos for this particular plane. That's really it for the main physical differences with the aircraft. In terms of its flight modelling, the aircraft, as far as I can tell, flies exactly the same as the Su-27S that we already have in game, so no difference there. If you enjoyed flying the Su-27, you are really going to like the J-11A. It's exactly the same plane. There is, however, a slight difference when it comes to weaponry, and this is the major difference between the J-11A and the Su-27S, and it's why I imagine in multiplayer at least a lot of people are going to be flying the J-11A. So the first of these major changes is in the ECM, or Electronic Countermeasures pod. Now, the standard Su-27S uses the L005 ECM, however, the J-11 uses the RKL609 ECM pod. Now, the RKL is a domestically created Chinese ECM. It is apparently better and more reliable than the standard L005 featured on the Su-27. Now, this is the hardest one to really do anything to test. Is the ECM there? Yes. Does it perform better than the ECM on the Su-27, or is it modelled exactly the same? I honestly have absolutely no idea. It is meant to be a better pod. Whether or not it's actually modelled as being better is an entirely different question. We're just going to take a little bit of a look around the cockpit here so you can see how some of the localization's been done. But anyways, the ECM is meant to be better. ECM's a really awkward one to test, so I don't know for sure that it is, but it is meant to be better. However, that's one of the minor changes. The major changes are in air-ground and air-to-air ordnance. So starting with air-ground, in the Su-27S, you single mount weapons racks onto the pylons. So, for example, a single pylon under the left wing will carry a single rack holding a single bomb or a single rocket pod. On the J-11A, however, you can have dual racks, so one pylon can hold 2 racks that will hold 2 bombs or 2 rocket pods. What this means is the J-11A can effectively carry twice as much air-ground ordnance as the Su-27S can. This vastly increases the J-11A's capability as a ground strike aircraft, well beyond the capabilities of the Su-27S. But that's not where it ends. The second and probably most major change to the J-11A over the Su-27S is its ability to carry the R77 Missile. Now, the R77 is a medium-range BVR fire-and-forget missile. It's roughly the equivalent to the American AMRAAM. Now, the R77 has been in DCS for quite some time, however it's only ever been available to one Russian aircraft, and that's the Mk.II. The Su-27S never had the capability of carrying this missile in DCS, which meant Su-27 pilots having to engage American F-15s loaded up with 6 AMRAAMs, or spam ram fighters, were at a distinct disadvantage in combat. The J-11A, however, can not only carry the R-77 missile, but it can carry 6 of them, a matching loadout for the American F-15s. While the R-77 is arguably not quite as good as the AMRAAM in terms of capability overall, the fact that a similar capability is now available to a flanker platform is likely going to make some interesting changes in DCS multiplayer. Now, having said all of this, the aircraft isn't quite finished yet. Now, as you've heard in the audio so far, lots of the audio has been Chinese localized as well, which is excellent. However, not all of it has been, as you're about to see. This actually caught me by surprise. The cockpit warning system for the J-11A, which you would expect to be in Chinese or in Russian, is actually in English. It's bitching Betty. For some reason, Deka Ironworks have chosen to use the audio files from what I'm assuming is the F-15 to make up the cockpit warnings rather than the warnings from the Su-27 at this time. It does pull you out of the moment a little bit the first time you hear bitching Betty telling you to stop being a dickhead while you're flying the aircraft, but it is still a work in progress and we will probably have Chinese voices in the aircraft in the very near future. The other thing is the cockpit itself is, and there it goes there, the cockpit itself is not currently finished. At the moment the cockpit is the Su-27 cockpit localized into Chinese. However, the real J-11A does have some subtle differences in the cockpit layout. There is likely going to be a new cockpit made for the J-11A in the very near future that will simply replace the one that we currently have. It still will not be a clickable cockpit, but it will be a match for the real aircraft. And I have no idea what my wingman hit here. This was supposed to be a free fly. There is nobody to shoot at him, so I can only assume he went and whacked it into a tree or something. But anyways, that is the J-11A as it currently stands in DCS, and it's a hell of a lot of fun to fly. As I said, it's basically an Su-27 with even more capabilities, so if you enjoy the Su-27, you're going to enjoy the J-11A. And as I said, to get access to it, all you need to do is buy Flaming Cliffs 3 or own Flaming Cliffs 3. Anybody who already has Flaming Cliffs, the latest update puts the J-11A into the game for you. If you do not have Flaming Cliffs 3, well, that's how you get access to it. It is now one of the Flaming Cliffs Fidelity aircraft that is available in that pack, and the whole Chinese assets pack is now part of Flaming Cliffs. So that's how you get your hands on it. The J-11A is also an interesting aircraft from its history. Now, the J-11A, as I said, is a licensed-built Chinese version of the Russian Su-27SK. And the first of the aircraft were produced in 1998. Now, the licensing that China got for the J-11A allowed them to build 200 aircraft, but they only ever actually produced around 100 of them. This was because the licensing agreement with Russia for the Su-27SK to make the J-11 didn't allow them to make major modifications to the aircraft. The aircraft had to be produced as just a Chinese licensed version of the same plane. They couldn't make major modifications to it. A section of the agreement which China then completely ignored, and in 2002 the cooperation to build the J-11A ceased, with only 100 aircraft produced, due to a mock-up for the J-11B being produced, or being demonstrated. The J-11B is a J-11A with Chinese-built engines, that are slightly more powerful than the standard engines for the Su-27SK. It also features a semi-glass cockpit, improved fire control systems, improved avionics, improved radar, improved navigational systems, and the ability to deploy Chinese-made anti-ship missiles. Not to mention that the airframe itself was more advanced, not because the design was changed, the design was exactly the same, but China used more advanced composite materials, which allowed the airframe to be just as strong as the Su-27, but lighter overall. As you can imagine, this went down like a lead balloon with the Russians. However, nothing has been done as far as I'm aware about this at this point, and the Chinese are continuing to produce the J-11B with around 160 or 170 aircraft produced at this point across a couple of different versions, with the primary versions being the J-11B, which is the single-seat air superiority fighter, and the J-11BS, which is a twin-seat version of the J-11B that has capabilities that are meant to be or rumoured to be comparable to the Strike Eagle variant of the F-15. So yeah, just a little interesting tidbit on the development of the J-11. It doesn't really relate to the A that is in-game, but it is still an interesting little tidbit on the J-11 project. And this is the point where things started going really interesting with this nice, quiet flyout of mine. Now, I'm not entirely sure if I pushed the aircraft just a little bit too hard and broke the engine here, or whether or not it was just a random systems failure. I do fly with random systems failures turned on. I think it makes the game a little bit more interesting. The after-action report didn't really give me any information on it other than there was a failure, but as Betty is informing me, I apparently have an issue with my left engine. Now, I tried to shut down and restart the engine in flight. It refused to do anything. However, the plane itself was still flying, although the thrust is slightly off-center. As you can see, we are down on the left engine. It's not a major worry, but it did mean it was time to stop playing around in the mountains and take this bird home. So, the landing here was slightly less than optimal. To top it off, not only do I have a slight issue with my left engine, but I've also got a crosswind running from right to left across the runway, just to make things that little bit more fun. Still, the plane come down nicely enough, and that was really that, although a little bit of a bang on touchdown, so I'm not sure what hit the ground there, but I didn't blow the tyres, so yeah, I don't know. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for watching. The J-11 is a lot of fun. I thoroughly recommend anybody who has Flaming Cliffs and has updated to the latest version of DCS to jump on and give it a try. Also, check out the camos for the thing. Some of them are absolutely gorgeous. Anyways, until next time, remember to click that like button, share, and subscribe if you would like to see more, and as always, take care.
滑行执行机坪。